Hello everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Monday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service. Up first, hazardous warning graphic, which shows still have winter weather advisories. Low pressure out over about the top of St. Lawrence Island here. That'll be drifting eastward this evening and tonight, so there is a winter weather advisory out for St. Lawrence Island for gusty winds, snow, blowing snow, reducing visibilities to less than half a mile at times, and then that'll also show up here along eastern Norton Sound into the Nulato Hills. Otherwise, pretty good snow showers occurring on the south coast of the Seward Peninsula there, so visibility's there also, like around Nome, could drop below a half mile at times in the moderate snow showers. There's winter weather advisories continuing here until a little after 1 a.m. in the morning here for the Alaska range for snow and winds gusting to 40 miles an hour to reduce visibilities to that half mile or less zone there. Anywhere from 3 to 7 inches total falling there, with maybe up to 11 inches in some areas. And then the winter weather advisories here slowly ending from west to east, but will be out until tomorrow afternoon, 1 p.m. in the afternoon there for the Yukon Delta. And same sort of conditions there, 2 to 4 inches of snow, gusty winds, reduced visibilities until about tomorrow afternoon, which conditions will improve as high pressure builds in. On satellite imagery, here's all the clouds with the snow moving eastward here, and then another low pressure area right over St. Lawrence Island this afternoon, and that'll be moving eastward tonight, keeping the snow going up through this area. A little lighter tonight, or turning more showery, and starting to shut off there for the Yukon Delta. Pretty good day today across Bristol Bay on down to Kodiak Island with some clearing in the skies there, but clouds and areas of precipitation from the central Arctic coast here all the way down into the Panhandle, where some rain fell during the day today. Also rain up along the North Gulf Coast and back in across Prince William Sound and portions of the Kenai Peninsula. Out to the west, high pressure, strong high pressure following this front in, building just south of the central Aleutians there, so really knocking the winds down, not much in the way of wind or any precipitation. Just some clouds there, say around Adak, and then it looks like up there toward the Pribilof, some clearing skies. Colder air with the low pressure area here, another system right through there. That's going to be tracking east-northeastward, following this one in behind. And you can see the cloud shield associated with the next stronger storm that's way out there to the west around Kamchatka Peninsula. And you can see the flow out here is basically from the west-southwest to north-northeast, coming over the top of that strong area of high pressure just south of the Aleutians. So any disturbances that develop out here will be moving quickly east-northeastward, but the whole pattern's changing. With that big storm out to the west, high pressure is going to be building northward here through the Bering Sea. And so winds will become more northwesterly aloft there. And once this system gets through the crest of the ridge, that's when it should pop up over the next day or so. Otherwise, again, that front pushing east to Kodiak really falling apart here as it moves into the Gulf of Alaska, but some good clearing on back to the west. And for the chart, on the chart this afternoon, got 1 week low up there over the northwest interior with snow along the trough axis on down. Most of the snow from this trough eastward into the interior, back up to the central eastern Arctic coast, and then there's that next low pressure area. This really not all that significant front here, but there is definitely colder air coming down southeastward out of the Russian Far East behind that, and that'll be tracking east and then dropping southeast here, linking up with this upper level trough that's currently from Prince William Sound this afternoon back to the northwest there, and all that's going to begin to take more of a southeasterly turn. Front here giving some areas of rain across the southeast coast, mostly central and northern areas, a lot more intermittent and lighter down to the south. And for tonight, that front will move through, leaving a few showers behind in its wake there across the Panhandle, starting to mix with snow. Snowfall levels starting to come down behind that here, so kind of a mixed precipitation, but really starting to shut off now, even over the eastern interior areas, and also south central Alaska as that flow starts to turn, become a little more offshore. Really not looking for any additional precipitation, maybe some showers banked up along the Alaska-Aleutian Range area, and then this moisture coming eastward here. That should just clip the northern Kuskokwim Valley, but extend back to the southwest. Most of that will be up in the western Tanana Valley, heading eastward, and just some scattered snow showers, areas of low clouds, fog out in the Bering Strait area from the Yukon Delta coast, and then that next week, very weak low there, starting to slide eastward. Areas of light snow on the Arctic coast, increasing winds here. Kenai Peninsula, Kodiak Island gradually, but light winds, fair skies there, strong high pressure just south of the Alaska Peninsula. Next storm holding way out there to the west. We'll see for Tuesday, tomorrow, takes mostly a turn to the north-northeast there with the front dragging across the far western Aleutians. Good south to north flow here, pulling a lot of moisture clouds, not really associated with any storminess, just moisture flowing northward in warmer air. So areas of low clouds, fog, widespread IFR, drizzle, that sort of thing, with high pressure shifting now over to just south of the Alaska Peninsula. Ridging up now, up into the northwest interior areas, as that disturbance finally moves to the east, weakens in southeast there. We've got the main low off the northern Panhandle with big increase in the winds here for the Prince William Sound area from Barren Islands up along the North Gulf Coast through the Copper River Delta, diminishing as you head north, but still some areas of light snow or snow showers with mostly cloudy skies north of the Alaska Range from the Copper River Basin. Another band up there on the eastern Arctic coast. And it looks like snow showers now, snowfall levels coming down for the northern Panhandle. And the outlook for Wednesday, that system slides southeastward. Flow becomes more offshore, so it should dry out there for the Panhandle with increasing clearing skies. Look for a big increase in the winds here for the eastern North Gulf Coast, Copper River Delta, probably into, say, northern Lynn Canal, and a little breezy even over the Copper River Basin. But definitely diminishing clouds and the snow showers ending probably by the afternoon here, even for those eastern areas. And this cloudiness will be mostly in the morning. Probably see a lot more clearing by the afternoon there with a strong 1,041 millibar high up over the north central interior. Back to the west, good southerly flow here, mild temperatures streaming northward. That front barely edging eastward there. So snow, blowing snow, pretty likely moving up into the St. Lawrence Island area through the Bering Strait and increasing on the far western Arctic coast, Cape Lisburne, Point Hope in the late afternoon. Otherwise, pretty good north slope, Arctic coast, light winds, clear skies, cool temperatures, all the way down to Kodiak Island. And for the lows tonight, 10 to 15 below central eastern Arctic coast, and 0 to 5 below here for the areas to the south, Seward Peninsula, up across the Brooks Range. Teens, lower to mid for the central Tanana Valley, all the way down to the southwest coast, and you're into the lower 20s out along the coast, lower 30s for the Alaska Peninsula and the Aleutians, mid 30s for the Panhandle. Highs tomorrow afternoon right around 40 in the north to 45 in the south, and mid-30s for the North Gulf Coast. Cooler for south central Alaska. Tomorrow in the Susitna Valley, 25 to 30 for the highs into the Copper River Basin. About the same for the Tanana Valley areas. Upper 20s here for the Yukon Delta, lower 30s Bristol Bay, and 0 to 5 above for the Arctic coast. And then the lows for Wednesday morning, kind of chilly, 15 to 20 below there for the Brooks Range on out to the Arctic coast, and right around 0 through the central interior to 7 above at Nome. Otherwise, down into the 5 to 15 degree range of south central Alaska. Some areas could actually approach 0 in the Susitna Valley, and 20s to lower 30s for the Panhandle. Looking at the highs for the afternoon, we got lower to mid 40s there for the Adak, but mid 30s for Shimia. A little below 0 on the Arctic coast, into the 25 to 30 degree range for south central Alaska, and 30s to the mid 40s for the Panhandle.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Flying weather for tomorrow morning looking like this. Lots of IFR here over the interior, especially from Arctic coast north slope southward into the and off the southwest coast here into Bristol Bay, and then over to the Aleutian Alaska Range and mostly along and west and north there through the Tanana Valley. Breaking out for the Yukon Flats, VFR, Kodiak Island, on up across Cook Inlet, Kenai Peninsula areas, Prince William Sound, and bigger area of VFR here out over the from the Pribilofs down across eastern Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula, then some marginal VFR farther west. Southeast coast, you've got lingering IFR there in the southeast, and followed by marginal VFR, which is followed by VFR conditions up to the northwest. And for the afternoon, still marginal VFR hanging in toward the eastern border here, especially down south. But VFR continues north Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound, back to Kodiak, most of Bristol Bay, and Susitna Valley, a little bit of patch of over the Talkeetna, some marginal VFR, and from the Wrangels up, improving though, becoming marginal VFR, diminishing IFR over the Tanana Valley, actually back here to the west as well. Still some IFR there, eastern Arctic coast, and gradually improving here out in the west, but a big area of IFR coming in with the next system into the central Bering and Aleutians, which makes a pretty good jog to the northeast here for Wednesday morning, right in over the Yukon, Kuskokwim Delta areas, up across St. Lawrence Island, northern Bristol Bay, and back over most of the Bering Sea and the Aleutians. VFR, at least to start the day out here, south central Alaska up to the Alaska Range. More IFR in the eastern central Tanana Valley as well as the eastern North Slope, and still lingering marginal VFR there over toward Hyder and Stewart. For Wednesday afternoon, that goes VFR there, but you still got lingering marginal VFR in areas, or likely there for the over toward the eastern border. Marginal VFR, 40-mile country, central Tanana Valley, down into the portions of the Copper River Basin, but hanging up on the coast range there should be VFR, Yakutat, Cordova, Prince William Sound, Kodiak northward to the Arctic coast. And you can see the IFR here kind of slides off to the southeast, dissipates, but lingers here along the coast with good south to north flow out there. A lot of moisture coming northward, so IFR will be pretty widespread out in that area. Passes Anatuvik, marginal VFR, same forecast for Adigan. And for Lake Clark and Merrill, marginal VFR gradually improving throughout the afternoon, same trend for Rainy. Windy IFR becoming marginal. And for Isabel, looks like some IFR on the northern entrance, otherwise marginal VFR with better conditions on down to the south. And Montasta just looks occasionally marginal. And Tanita, VFR, Portage, VFR, and Chilkoot and White, both VFR. Freezing levels, 2,000 feet now, back down across the Queen Charlotte Islands at the surface there near the border and along the North Gulf Coast. There's Shelikof Strait and Cape Neuenim off to the west-northwest, 2,000 to 6,000 feet here along and south of the Aleutians. Icing tomorrow, some lingering here along the Alaska Range up into the Tanana Valley and then back down toward Northway and Tok. A little bit more widespread area of possible light rime icing up here to the northwest on up to the eastern Arctic coast. Heavier icing making an appearance out there with the next system pushing into the western Aleutians, and some icing threats continue over the Panhandle. And then for the jet stream here, we've got a lot of storminess out there to the west, so that's building this ridge up into the Bering Sea, and that allowing this trough to dig southward, actually coming eastward, and it'll drop southeast. Flow will become more northerly, colder air over the interior, but eventually it's going to result in warmer air spreading into the Bering Sea. At 9,000 feet, we've got pretty good northwest winds here going 40 to 60 knots across Kodiak Island, and westerly 35, Yukon Delta to 50 knots there in the Bering Strait. West of the ridge here, south to north flow, 25 to 30 knots over the eastern Aleutians, increases to as high as 65 knots out towards Shemya, and about 30 knots for Adak and Atka. Southeast coast, kind of a trough in over the northern areas there, so only 15 to 20, 25 knots there over the southern Panhandle. Prince William Sound, northerlies of 40, and 3,000 feet looking pretty windy here as well, 25 to 50 knots from the North Gulf Coast, stronger over Kodiak Island. And then, of course, diminishing under the ridge there with flow coming over the top of that ridge at about 25. And we've got 15 to 20 knot winds over the north and eastern part of the state, and the strongest winds out there to the west. With that, turbulence, occasional moderate chop, Kodiak Island, Prince William Sound, and the western Aleutians, as well as eastern Bristol Bay.
Welcome back to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm Dave Snider, and joining me today is Cindy Preller. She's the Tsunami Program Manager for Alaska Region's National Weather Service. And Cindy, we hear a lot about tsunamis in the news, probably a lot more than we used to, but let's remind everybody, what is a tsunami?
Thanks for having me, Dave.
Sure.
Tsunami is basically, it's really simple. It's just a disturbance in the water column. So the entire water column from the seafloor to the sea surface is disturbed by something major, usually a major earthquake. But it can also be a volcanic eruption, even an asteroid. Landslide is especially dangerous.
Okay, so if I'm sitting in my bathtub and I drop a bath toy, that could be a bathtub tsunami.
It is absolutely a bathtub tsunami.
Okay, very good. So Alaska is one of the states, or maybe the state, with the greatest amount of coastline, so tsunamis are a pretty major risk here in Alaska. Who is most at risk?
Yeah, Alaska is significant. We actually make most of the Pacific's tsunamis.
Wow, okay.
On the Aleutian Trench. And it's where the Pacific plate is subducting underneath the American plate. And we produce some very large, great quakes. And of course, the most at risk is the Aleutian Trench.
Okay.
But that extends into south central Alaska as well. They're at huge risk. And then southeast Alaska's risk is really mostly landslide focused.
Okay. Are there any places along the Alaskan coastline that don't have a tsunami risk, or at least a very, very low risk?
Absolutely. The Bering Sea's risk is very low, and the Arctic's risk is very low as well.
Okay, so when we're talking about tsunami dangers, those are places that need to be monitored, but probably not really.
No, I mean, I
good.
won't say never.
Yeah, sure.
Because I know
You can't.
better.
Science knows better.
Right. So,
Very good.
near to never.
Okay. Well, let's just say you're on the coast anywhere in Alaska. What are warning signs that tsunami dangers are threatening you right now?
This is super important because Alaska's greatest risk, especially out on the Aleutians and South Central, is a near-field tsunami, and then of course the landslides in southeast. It's even more intense because we
So
can't.
shorter warning time.
No warning time.
Okay.
The earthquake is the warning.
Okay.
And that is the most important thing for anybody to remember. The water can arrive in less than 2 minutes.
2 minutes. Wow.
Yeah, at the National Tsunami Warning Center in Palmer, we need to get the warning out in 5 minutes. So for those near-field tsunamis, it's the earthquake is the warning. So if you feel shaking, and of course the first thing you do is drop, cover, and hold, and you need to start counting slowly to 20.
The right way. How do you do that?
Oh, I teach kids to do it with their favorite things. So 1 chocolate, 2 chocolate, 3 chocolate, but you can count anything you like. And if you're thinking of something happy, that helps. Especially helps kids, but it'll help your psyche.
So you don't speed up because you're getting stressed out.
Right. It actually lowers your heart rate.
Interesting.
You know, so if you think of something you love and practice that. So you're in an earthquake, you're under the table, you're next to the ocean. Right. This is important if you're next to the ocean. If you're not next to the ocean, don't worry about it. Just stay in place under cover.
And you're talking about a mile, a quarter mile? What's close?
A mile, even a couple miles. You know, our rule of thumb used to be a mile inland was safe, but the last few tsunamis have taught us otherwise. So, yeah, you know, in Japan we had inundation up to 10 miles.
Right.
So.
And that was a big quake.
That was a big quake.
So you have a quake, you're counting slowly to 20.
To 20.
What's next?
And if you get to 20 and it's still shaking, you need to evacuate.
Okay.
And that is, that's scary.
Yeah.
Because you're evacuating in a live event that's still shaking. You know, 1964 shook for 4.5 minutes. Indonesia shook for 12 minutes.
Wow. Right.
Japan, I think, shook for 6. I'm not sure of that, but it was long. Anyway, more than 20 seconds.
And that's a sign of a very major earthquake, the worst.
Well, 20 seconds is a magnitude 7, so that's not the worst. But what a magnitude 7 can do is trigger a landslide. And those landslides might be a submarine landslide, so you won't see it, you won't hear it, you won't know it, and then the water's moving. So that's really, really, really dangerous. That's what happened in '64 first. Seward, Valdez, Whittier all had landslides first.
And when you're talking about the water is a warning sign too. What happens with the water that gives you a very easy visual sign that something's changing?
Not guaranteed. It might go out, it might go way out really fast enough to leave the fish behind, but that's not guaranteed. It might just be a fast flood instead. So either way, if it's acting like a super fast rising tide, faster than a tide should rise, get out of there. And if it goes out really fast, get out of there. You know, we lost a lot of lives because people will go check out the new tide pools or
Sure.
pick up fish or shells or, you know, so, and it should feel weird.
Right.
You know, it should be weird.
So pay attention to those natural warning signs and how you feel, because those are maybe the only clues you have.
Right, and you know, sound also. You can hear a tsunami. It'll sound like a roaring train, maybe.
Okay.
Or it might sound silent because the water's been pulled out.
Right.
And that's pretty weird. Imagine camping
Yeah.
at night
Yeah.
near the beach, and all of a sudden you don't hear the ocean anymore.
That would be different.
That would be weird.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you also might hear blowing bubbles, and that's actually from the pressure that's blowing the air out from the sand grains, rock grains.
Interesting.
So if you hear blowing bubbles, that's a little weird.
Okay.
Or clinking rocks, you know, like a rain stick. So those are the sound signs. So the visual is rushing in or rushing out, and roaring especially.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it takes a lot of work to get people and keep people aware of what the tsunami warning signs are and what their risks are around Alaska. And there's a website that can help them do that. Where can they go online to get more information for their school, their home, their church, their business?
Oh, there's several. The National Tsunami Warning Center has a website as well, and the easiest way to look that up is just NTWC.
NTWC.
The URL is not intuitive at all.
Okay.
There's also ready.alaska.gov. The state of Alaska has a lot of helpful stuff. Preparedness kits. They have everything you need to get ready.
Okay.
And then for teachers and others, there's a wonderful curriculum called Alaska Tsunami Education Program.
Alaska Tsunami Education Program. Okay.
And that's AKwx.
AKwx. Okay, very good. Those are really good tips to get more information and search that out and help your own community stay safe with the threat of tsunamis around Alaska. Next time we come back and talk to you some more about the Tsunami Ready program and get more in depth on how people can learn more about the risks and what to do here in Alaska. So thank you for joining us today, Cindy. And next time on Alaska Weather Facts, more on tsunamis around Alaska. We'll see you next time. And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Looking at today's sea ice analysis. It's about as far west and south as it's going to get for the next, well, for a while. The southerly winds that will be coming in tomorrow night and on Wednesday, that'll start to retreat it back to the north. Looks like it'll be kind of in a southerly wind pattern there until probably sometime on Saturday. For the coastal water forecast, we've got west-northwest gales up here along the north coast for 35-knot winds, 15 to 16-foot seas. Small craft advisories down to the south, west-northwest 25 to 30. Clarence Strait only 15 out of the west. South 25 for Stevens Passage, north 15 for Northern Link Canal. And then those pick up the gale force in the canal there on Wednesday with small craft advisories now in Stevens Passage, north 20 for the Clarence Strait. Southeast on the light side there in the south coast about 15 knots, but increasing from the northeast as you head up the coastline with small crafts becoming gales out of the here on the north coast with seas running 11 to 15 feet. And for Prince William Sound tomorrow, northwest 30 knots, seas 6 to 7 feet. And then full gales here for the eastern North Gulf Coast with 35 to 40 knot winds back to the Barrens, and basically 40 with higher gusts from the Barrens on up into Kachemak Bay, west 30 southern Cook Inlet. For Wednesday, Cook Inlet north at 15, coming down under gale force for the Kachemak Bay area as well as the Barrens, and northerlies 30 to 35, strongest in the east here, with higher gusts coming out of the Copper River Delta, and small craft advisories continue for Prince William Sound. For Kodiak, good northwest wind, 40 knots, higher gusts there on the east side, winds coming down to west at 30 for Shelikof Strait, northwest 25 to 30 knots there, blow from Bristol Bay down across southwest of Kodiak Island from Sitkinak to Castle Cape. Then those drop off to about 20 knots from the west here for the Alaska Peninsula, both north and south. And for the Wednesday outlook, light northeast winds now for Bristol Bay, southeast 20 on the Bering Sea side of the peninsula, southwest 15, pretty light until you get up to the northern part from Castle Cape to Sitkinak, northwest 30. Gales, minimum gales continue for the Kodiak Island area on the east side. And for the Aleutians, we've got 45 knot southerlies coming in, head of that next system into the far western Aleutians, otherwise southeast 25 to 30 knots here. Begin to drop off a little bit, 20 to 25 knots over toward the Fox Islands, where seas will subside to 5 to 9 feet. And then on Wednesday, south to southeast 25 to 30, so smallcraft advisories here for the eastern Aleutians, 30-knot winds just under gale force for the central areas, and then gale force winds out west from the west for the Shimiatu area and south for the areas from Kisk Island to Adak. And then for the southwest coast, south of Nunivak Island, west 25 knots, southwest 15 there, St. Lawrence Island to Nunivak Island, small craft advisories for the Perbeloffs, and south at 20 for St. Matthew Island. And then the next day, those kick up the gale force there for St. Matthew Island, seas build to 18 feet, 25 out of the south of the Perbeloffs, southeast 20, pick up 25 knots from the east-southeast and increase to 30 knots for St. Lawrence Island. Eastern Beaufort Sea coast on the extreme east side there, west winds 20 knots, otherwise lighter winds here from the north or northeast 5 to 10, all the way over to the west side, then west 15, and from Cape Beaufort down to Wales, west 10 to 15. And for Wednesday, southeasterlies 30 knots, brisk wind advisory is definitely coming into the area from Wales up to Cape Beaufort, and then markedly lighter there on up the coastline 10 to 15 out of the east, swing around kind of a variable pattern right there, and then westerlies 10 increasing to 15 toward demarcation point. And for tonight again, got this system finally exiting the panhandle there, well, taking its time there over towards Stewart and Hyder. But anyway, there'll be some showers left behind in its wake, and then snowfall levels coming down here as this load begins to drive colder air southward into the Gulf of Alaska, and drying out though for the North Gulf Coast, Kodiak Island area into Cook Inlet, with just a chance of some isolated snow showers, main snow area as this system moves eastward. So winter weather advisories this evening for the Yukon Delta, St. Lawrence Island, southern Seward Peninsula coast, shifts over toward the eastern Norton Sound area later tonight. And then winter weather advisories continue out through tomorrow afternoon as this system moves eastward there for more snow in the eastern interior and the Arctic coast. Strong high pressure building in on Tuesday here makes for pretty good conditions. Colder northerly flow over the interior. Big storm out west, edge eastward on Wednesday there as high pressure holds over the interior. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again tomorrow.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.